Bonjour à tous, je suis ravi d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui et merci pour l'invitation à cette conférence. Et j'ai le plaisir de partager et la recherche clinique menée des États-Unis. And that's all the French you'll get from me today. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about mid-1L syndrome and the state of clinical research in the United States. So first of all, yes, I'm a medical geneticist, and I've been collaborating with Joe Dougherty, kind of on the clinical side, trying to connect the lab and the clinic to make whatever discoveries are made in the lab relevant to patient care. And the first thing I want to talk about is, first of all, like why do we want to do clinical studies? And I won't go through the whole list, but first, of course, as Juliette has already mentioned, we want to learn more about the condition and see what's important, see what we can target, and also eventually knowing more about the condition can help us guide medical care. And eventually, and that's what we all want, is have clear guidelines and tools to treat our patients with mid-1L syndrome. And I want to use Rett syndrome as an example, not necessarily because it's similar to mid-1L, because it's really not, it's very different, but it's one of these rare disorders that we've known a lot about it for a long time. And we can put it as an example of how we learn more about a disorder, and then how we eventually get to some type of intervention and treatment. And again, just quickly going through this, first, Rett syndrome was first described in 1966. And since then, a lot of things have happened. Of course, number one, defining the disease, what it is, what it's not, creating animal models, establishing a natural history study to learn more about the condition, its course, and eventually finding out what traits are reversible in mice and could potentially be treatable in Rett syndrome, and then testing drugs in mice, and then eventually getting the first FDA-approved drug, trofinetide, in 2023. So again, it was almost 50 years from from the discovery to the end. Hopefully that's not what we're expecting on other genetic disorders, because things hopefully go quicker these days, but this is just to give a comparison of kind of like where we are right now in terms of mid-1L syndrome from the first report of the deletion encompassing mid-1L to the mouse model. And now going specifically to what we've done in the United States from a clinical standpoint, we basically started last year. It was in May 2024 with a mid-1L focus group. So we've met online with a total of 6 families, and with a goal basically of course, making those connections, but also trying to find out what is important for mid-1L families. Again, 6 families is a very small number, but that data could give us a guidance of what's important for some of those families, what are the next steps, and where to go from there. So yeah, we discussed experience, challenges, strengths, priorities. And then, as we've mentioned a couple of times already, in October, with the help of Joe Dougherty and different families, we had the first scientist family meeting in St. Louis, Missouri. Oh, sorry, didn't update this. So we had a total of 8 in-person participants. What I mean with that, 8 is 8 mid-1L families plus researchers. So it's not 8 in total. And we had a lot of online participants, but we weren't sure like how many of those were families versus other interested researchers not. But at the end of this meeting, we sent a survey to different families, and we had 33 respondents. So at least we had 3 families somewhat participate. 33 families participate in this meeting. These are just some results from that survey. Again, it was a very informal survey asking a lot of open questions about priorities for families, or what were the symptoms that families thought were most important to treat or target. And in this graph, I'm just showing out of those 33 respondents, what they consider was the priority number 1 sign or symptom, and priority number 2. Priority number 1 being the blue columns here, and then the orange ones are priority number 2. So as you can see, some of the highest ones are basically related to behavior, mental health, and temper and outbursts. So which again, kind of significantly related. Curiously enough, intellectual disability was mentioned as high priority by at least 25% of respondents, but then was less of a second priority. And again, maybe some important mentions here, like we've been talking a lot about obesity and GI issues, which are still are of course significant too. About 10% mention it as a significant symptom, but also communication was kind of at the same level. There was a very open-ended question too for comments. I thought the best way to show kind of what the comments were, what their significance were, was like to create this word cloud here about the most frequently mentioned words. And as you can see here, a lot of respondents mentioned outbursts as something of significance, as well as obesity and communication. And again, there's other several things there, but that kind of shows you that at least in those 33 respondents, not necessarily everyone, but a nice number said that outbursts, communication, obesity, behavior also were significant features here that require some type of intervention for their children and loved ones. We also asked them about medications, like what type of medications were they on. I'm showing you here a graph with some of those medications by category, and probably the most frequent ones were ADHD medications. Number one, because it's one of the most treatable things there is. Like we have good knowledge about how to treat ADHD. But there's also like some other mentions like GI meds. It seems like constipation was something that some families mentioned, at least I think 20 or 25% of families did mention that. And some other like anti-seizure, anti-epilepsy drugs were also mentioned. Of course, clarifying that even though they're in this category, doesn't mean that they were being given for epilepsy, because as we mentioned, like lamotrigine is meant for seizures, but it's also used for other things like mood modulation. So that was the survey that we did, but we were also working with this registry called the Brain Gene Registry. It's a national brain gene registry, like in the United States, where basically it's a registry of patients with variants or changes in what we call brain genes, so genes associated with neurodevelopmental disorders and other brain-related conditions. And within that list, MID1L is there, so we kind of like want to take advantage of that already established platform in order to get more information about patients with MID1L. And there they provide, of course, participants can share electronic medical records. There's also a rapid neurobehavioral assessment protocol. So basically, it's a neuropsychological test, but adapted to a teleconsultation, telemedicine. So it's basically done all via telehealth, via Zoom or a similar platform. They share the genetic testing report, and there's also some other health surveys included there. Unfortunately, this registry is only at this time for people living in the U.S., so that's quite unfortunate. So far, we have recruited 22 patients enrolled. We have information on 18 of them, and again, there's different types of variants from missense variants to truncating variants, deletions, and some some what we call intragenic duplications. And something else that you can see there is that we're also including some patients with variants of uncertain significance. So whenever we're interpreting these results, have to take that into account. But basically, the philosophy of this registry is to gather as much information on anyone with a gene change, even if it's of uncertain significance. And I'll go very quickly through this again because these are very crowded slides. But some of the data mining that we've been doing, we've got some preliminary data comparing like some of the most frequent diagnoses found in the medical health records. Of course, unsurprisingly, lack of normal development is the one that we've found in 100% of the participants. The red, orange bars represent mid-1L patients. The blue ones represent all other patients in that database. And so we decided to kind of compare them a little bit. And you can see that, at least in that cohort, the prevalence of things like lack of normal physiological development is much higher compared to the whole general BGR cohort. And some other things that as expected, things like constipation that I've mentioned, obesity, it's at least like 25%, and other GI issues. Some medications that some people that we found that some people had been ordered at least once. Unsurprisingly, a lot of like ADHD medications were there, like guanfacine, at least in 4 of those patients. And these are some preliminary results on the rapid neurobehavioral testing. Again, these are based on a very, very limited number of patients, because even though 22 patients have been enrolled, not everybody has completed all the tests. But I think this kind of like tells us a little bit of what we already know about mid-1L, but it maybe tells us a little bit in a quantitative way with numbers. Again, with a very limited number of patients. So, for example, in this graph, I'm showing the result of this specific tool, the Shipley Standard Score, which tests cognitive ability. This curve here just represents the general population. This peak being the average in the general population, the average score, which is 100. This is only like 5 mid-1L patients that did this test. But again, so limited conclusions here, but as you can see, overall the scoring is below average compared to the general population. Here it's another tool used in younger individuals and in people that have maybe like more cognitive delays. And as you can see here that there's also a trend towards everybody being below average and several of them being like below the threshold for what we would consider like the developmental delays. And this is even more crowded. Again, you don't have to go, I'm not going through each one of this, but this is what we call the Vineland tool, which basically looks at adaptive behavior, which is like practical everyday skills. This is like the general score, like the total score, again, showing that all patients are below average compared to the general population. And these are like sub-scores, like basically looking at different sub-skills, like for example, like socialization, like daily living skills, like motor skills. And overall, what we're seeing here in this very limited number of patients is that all of them have in general some degree of delay in different subcategories, in different realms of adaptive behavior. So this is where we are right now in the US in terms of clinical studies. What are we envisioning in the future? Of course, I still think that the BGR is a nice tool because it's already there, it's established. So we're kind of like motivating like US patients to get enrolled there. But as we're doing today, we are promoting collaborations with other clinical and family groups in the US and abroad. I think one of the end goals is to, at some point, establish a natural history study. Again, working with my university, but also working with parents groups abroad and also the parent groups in the US. so we can eventually know more about MID1L and what type of interventions could help our patients in the future. And that's all that I have. Thank you very much.